I never thought I'd be the guy to find out my wife was cheating on me, especially not during what was supposed to be a perfect anniversary weekend. Her name's Amanda, and we've been together for almost 10 years. We got married right out of college, and honestly, for most of those years, I thought we had a pretty solid thing going. Sure, there were the usual fights. She's a bit of a bitch sometimes, always quick with a sarcastic comment or a sharp remark, but I figured that was just her way of joking around. She's always claimed she was too busy for a serious affair, said she was just working late or caught up with her friends, that kind of thing. But lately, I'd started noticing little changes that didn't sit right. It started a couple of months ago. She became very secretive about her phone, always locking it when she was in the bathroom or at her desk. I'd catch her deleting messages or quickly slipping her phone into her purse when I walked into the room, acting like I was interrupting her important business. I'd ask her about it, and she'd brush it off with some snarky comment saying I was paranoid or that I didn't trust her. That made me more suspicious, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, I'd noticed she was spending more time away from home, claiming it was work or catching up with friends, but her excuses never quite added up. Then came the weekend of our anniversary. I'd planned a nice dinner, a little getaway, the usual romantic stuff. We were supposed to celebrate our decade of being together. But that night, things felt off from the start. She was acting tense, distracted even. She kept checking her phone more than usual, and I caught her in a few quick glances at her messages when she thought I wasn't looking. That was strange enough, but what really tipped me off was when I accidentally saw her phone light up with a message from someone named Chris, with a heart emoji next to it. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe a coworker, a friend, but the message history was revealing. They'd been texting all day, talking about plans to meet, working late, and joking around like they were more than just colleagues. The next morning, I was snooping around the bedroom trying to get some space from the tension, and I saw her hide her phone as if it was a damn weapon. I asked her about the message. She rolled her eyes, scoffing at me and saying, "It's just work stuff, Dan, you're imagining things." But I knew better. The way she said it, the way she avoided eye contact, the fact that she was nervous, I knew this was more than work. I started digging through her emails and her social media, and what I found made my stomach turn. There were messages between her and Chris, pictures of them together, flirty comments, and even some late-night texts that clearly crossed the line. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. I still remember that moment vividly. I sat there, stunned, unable to breathe. My mind raced, trying to process how my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, could betray me like this, right under my nose during what was supposed to be a celebratory weekend. I felt rage, betrayal, heartbreak all at once. How could she lie so effortlessly? How long had this been going on? And most of all, how do I even confront her after all this? I guess I've been numb ever since. I kept telling myself I'd handle it, that I'd sit her down and get some answers. But the truth is, I was already planning my revenge, even if I didn't know exactly what it would look like yet. I needed to make her feel what I was feeling: humiliated, betrayed, used. I'd come to realize that sometimes the only way to deal with a betrayal like this is to strike back in a way that hits her where it hurts. But I'll get to that part later. Right now, I'm just trying to make sense of everything that's happened and figure out what's next. After I found out about Chris, everything changed. The weekend that was supposed to be a celebration turned into a nightmare. I couldn't get the images out of my head, her texts, the pictures, the way she lied so convincingly when I confronted her. I stayed up all night, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to just pack my bags and walk away, forget this ever happened. But another part, the part that still loved her, said I needed answers, real answers, not her bullshit excuses. The following morning, I decided I'd confront her again, but this time I needed to be prepared. I had to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I started digging more, going through her social media history, her emails, her phone logs. I wanted to know everything about her affair with Chris, how long it had been going on, how deep it was, what else she'd lied about. And what I found was worse than I expected. It wasn't just a fling, not something she thought she could hide forever. They had been seeing each other for nearly 6 months. Secret dinners, late-night calls, sneaking around in her car after work. They'd even gone on a short trip together last month, just the two of them, while I was at home working late. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. That afternoon, I finally sat her down in the living room. I'd never seen her look so annoyed, so defensive. She threw her head back and went on the attack right away. "You're overreacting, Dan. You always do this. You think everything's about you, but it's not. Chris is just a friend. We're working together, that's all." Her voice was sharp and she looked at me like I was the one in the wrong, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I pulled out all the evidence, screenshots, messages, pictures, and laid them on the coffee table. Her face went pale, and for the first time I saw a crack in her bitchy facade. "You've been lying to my face for months," I said, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. "You've been sneaking around talking to him like you're in some damn secret relationship. How long has this been going on, Amanda? How could you do this to us, to me?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes, and her voice turned bitchy real quick. "Oh, please, Dan, it's not what you think. You're just jealous and insecure. Chris and I were just working on a project, that's all." She tried to brush it off, but her voice betrayed her. She was lying badly. I could see it in her eyes. I remember feeling a huge knot tighten in my stomach. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the way she lied so brazenly, like she thought she could talk her way out of it. I was furious, but I also felt so devastated. How could she do this? How could she betray me after everything we'd been through? I was trying to stay calm, but inside I was screaming. I wanted to shake her, yell at her, make her see how much she'd hurt me. But I just sat there, stunned, watching her spin her web of lies, knowing deep down I couldn't trust her anymore. When she finally stormed out of the room, claiming she needed space, I knew there was no saving it. The marriage was broken, maybe irreparably. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it, not without some kind of payback. I wasn't just going to leave quietly, accept it, and pretend it never happened. No, I needed her to feel what I was feeling, betrayed, humiliated, used. That's when I started planning my revenge. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew it had to be something that would hit her where it hurt the most. I needed her to remember this betrayal forever, just like I would. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I went from feeling numb and angry to deep sadness, then to a kind of cold resolve. I kept thinking about the morning she lied her way out of it, how she looked at me like I was the problem, like I was crazy for even suspecting her. That made my blood boil even more. How dare she treat me like I was the one in the wrong, like I was the one betraying her. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about her complete disregard for us, for what we built together. And I knew I had to do something, something that would serve as a wake-up call either for her or for me, or maybe both. I didn't want a quick divorce, not yet. I wanted her to see what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away with her lies. And I was just getting started. After the initial shock wore off, I started to see things a little clearer, or at least I thought I did. I knew I couldn't just confront her and then forget about it, not with what I'd uncovered. She was the one who'd broken the trust, and I needed to make her understand that. The anger kept simmering beneath the surface, but there was also this undercurrent of determination. I couldn't let her think she got away with it, that I'd just roll over and accept her lies. No, I had to be smarter about this. I had to plan my next move carefully. Over the next few days, I did my best to keep a low profile. I didn't want her to know I was onto her, not yet. I started gathering more evidence, more screenshots, recordings of her calls when I could, even some of her social media activity. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. The more I learned, the clearer it became that Amanda wasn't just sneaking around. She was actively cheating, lying, and trying to cover her ass. She was a bitch in her own right, belittling me, dismissing my feelings, acting like she owned the damn marriage. I couldn't stand that. One night I came home early from work, pretending I had some urgent business. I wanted to catch her off guard, see if she slipped up. I hid in the closet while she was in the bathroom, listening to her on the phone with him. I could hear her laughing, flirting, making plans to meet again. That was the moment I finally snapped. It all hit me. I was losing my wife, the woman I thought I knew, to some guy who was probably just as much a bastard as she was. I knew then that I couldn't just confront her with the evidence. I had to do something more calculated. So I started to think about how to turn the tables. I wanted her to realize how badly she'd screwed up. I figured the best way was to make her feel what I was feeling, that pain of betrayal, that humiliation of being cheated on. The idea gradually formed in my mind. I'd set a trap, something that would expose her to everyone, especially to her. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just going to take this lying down. I started planting small things. I sent a few anonymous messages to the guy, nothing threatening, just enough to make him nervous, to let him know I knew what was going on. I also began to subtly gather mutual friends' opinions, just to see if anyone else suspected anything, to get a sense of how far this was going. It was a slow process, but I felt like I was building something bigger, something that would make her regret ever crossing me. Meanwhile, I kept my distance, pretending everything was normal. She was bitchy and dismissive, of course, throwing her usual sarcastic remarks, acting like she was the victim somehow. She kept insisting that I was crazy, paranoid, insecure. But I knew better. I could see the cracks in her armor, and I was starting to enjoy watching her squirm just a little. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be some doormat, that her lies and bullshit had consequences. I'd already lost a lot of feelings for her, but I was determined to make her pay for what she'd done, if not directly to her, then indirectly through the mess she'd made. One night I found myself sitting outside her office, waiting for her to leave so I could slip her something, an anonymous note, a little reminder that I was watching. I wasn't sure what I was going to do exactly, but I knew I had to make her realize that her betrayal wasn't going to stay hidden forever, that she had to face the reality of what she'd done and that I was capable of making her regret it. It was a dangerous game and I knew I had to be careful. But I also knew I couldn't just let this slide, not without some kind of retaliation. I needed to take control again, to remind her that I was still here, still hurt, and still capable of fighting back. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became what I needed to do. Amanda's attitude was getting worse, bitchy, dismissive, like she thought she could walk all over me without consequences. Every sarcastic remark, every sneer just fueled my desire to make her pay. I wasn't about to let her run away with this. I had to do something that would shake her up, something that would hit her where it hurt, the same way she'd shattered my trust. One evening, I came home early from work again. I knew she'd be at her usual late-night meeting or whatever excuse she'd thrown out. I waited in the dark just outside the door, and when she stepped out, I blocked her path. She looked surprised, but her bitchy smirk quickly returned. "What are you doing here, Dan? Can't you see I'm busy?" she snapped. I looked her dead in the eyes and handed her a little note I'd written earlier that day. It was simple. "I know everything. Stop lying. I'm watching you." Her eyes flicked to the note, and for a second she looked genuinely caught off guard. But then she rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Seriously, Dan, grow up. You're just being paranoid," she spat, brushing past me. But I could see it. Her hands trembled slightly. Her face was a little pale. She was trying to play tough, but I knew she was rattled. That's when I decided I was going to escalate this even further. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and finally, truly scared. The next morning, I set to work. I created a fake email account, something anonymous, where I started sending her little surprises. Nothing explicit, but enough to make her realize I was onto her. A few suggestive messages, a reminder of her lies, a photo or two I'd secretly taken of her texts and sent to her email. I was careful not to push too hard too soon, but I wanted her to know I was capable of exposing everything. My plan was to make her paranoid enough that she'd have to confront the truth herself. At the same time, I reached out to a few mutual friends, people we both knew and trusted. I planted the idea that Amanda might be cheating on me, just enough to make them question her. I didn't want to start a full-blown investigation, but I wanted her to feel like everyone was watching her, like she couldn't hide forever. It was a slow process, but I could see her slipping. She started getting more defensive, snapping at me for no reason, accusing me of crazy accusations when I brought up the fact that I was suspicious. Her bitchy attitude grew worse, and I loved it, because I knew I was getting under her skin. I could see her trying to maintain her cool, but the cracks were widening. She was starting to panic, to crack under the pressure. That's exactly what I wanted. I needed her to realize that her lies and betrayal wouldn't go unnoticed forever, that I was capable of uncovering everything, even if she thought she was clever. I was setting the stage for something bigger, something that would make her realize she couldn't keep lying to me anymore. All along, I kept my emotions in check. I didn't want her to see how much this was hurting me. No, I wanted her to believe I was just as manipulative as she was, that I was capable of turning the tables, making her feel small and exposed, because that's what she deserved. She'd lied, cheated, and dismissed my feelings for months. It was time she paid the price. I didn't know exactly what that would be yet, but I was working on it. I had to. I owed her that much, and honestly, I owed myself that much too. The betrayal had cut deep, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it easily. Over the next few days, I kept pushing the envelope. I wanted her to know I was serious, that I had the evidence and the power to expose her fully. I started leaving little clues around the house, her phone mysteriously missing, a hidden USB drive I planted with some of the most incriminating texts and photos. I knew she'd find them eventually, and I wanted her to feel the paranoia creeping. It was almost like a game to me, seeing how far I could push her before she cracked completely. One evening, she came home visibly tense, snapping at everything I said. She was bitchy and dismissive, using her usual sarcasm, but I saw the flicker of fear behind her eyes. That's when I knew I had her right where I wanted. I sat her down calmly but with a cold edge in my voice. I told her I knew everything, about Chris, the cheating, all the lies. I pulled out the evidence I'd been collecting and I watched her face fall. Her mask of coolness shattered for just a second, exposing the panic beneath. She tried to deny it, of course. "You're crazy, Dan. You're just jealous because I won't fuck you anymore, right? Chris is just a friend. I told you you're overreacting." Her words were sharp, venomous, but I wasn't buying it. I had enough proof to make her realize that her lies had a limit. I laid everything out piece by piece, watching her struggle to come up with a plausible excuse. But deep down, I knew she was busted. I felt rage building inside me, hatred for her, anger at how she'd humiliated me, betrayed everything we had. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd given her enough rope, enough chances to come clean. Now, I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal. I wanted her to know that I wasn't just going to walk away, that I had some tricks up my sleeve, that if she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. Her bitchy attitude didn't change. She kept calling me paranoid, claiming I was just jealous, trying to turn the tables on me. But I saw the cracks and I knew she was about to lose control. That's when I dropped the bomb. I told her I was going to tell everyone, our friends, her family, everyone she cared about, that she'd been cheating, lying, and sneaking around with Chris. I made it clear I was done playing nice. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. The night ended with her storming out of the house, yelling, calling me psycho, saying I was ruining everything. But I didn't care. I knew I'd made my point. From that moment on, her facade was gone. She was vulnerable, exposed, and she knew it. The power had shifted. I'd taken control of the situation in my own way, and I was ready to see how far I could push her before she broke completely. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't going to end quietly. She had made her choice, and I was going to make her regret it. In the days that followed, everything changed. I kept my distance, watching her try to hold it together while I quietly prepared for the inevitable fallout. Every time she looked at me, there was this flicker of fear, like she finally understood that her lies and betrayal had consequences. I didn't bother hiding my satisfaction. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away because of her own selfishness and bitchy attitude. I told a few friends what I'd uncovered, not to gloat but to let her see that her secret was no longer safe. The whispers spread faster than I expected. Soon, people started asking her questions, hinting that they knew. Her perfect little world was crumbling, and I could see her. Panic rising. She tried to deny everything to maintain her cool, but I knew better. Her carefully built facade was shattered. The woman who once looked so confident had become defensive, irritable, a shell of her former self. I moved out quietly, not because I wanted to punish her further, but because I needed space to clear my head. Staying in the same house felt toxic now. I'd made my decision. I was done with the lies, the betrayal, the game she played. I realized that revenge wasn't about hurting her just to hurt her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, making her see that her actions had consequences, and showing her she couldn't treat people like disposable objects. When I finally left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I knew I'd be better off without her, but part of me still felt the ache of losing what I thought was a real partnership. Still, I also understood that staying would mean accepting her bullshit, her lies, and that bitchy attitude that masked her guilt. I wasn't about to be a victim anymore. This whole experience taught me a brutal lesson. Trust is fragile, and some people just aren't worth the pain. Looking back, I see her now, still trying to hold herself together, still lying through her teeth as if that'll somehow fix what's broken. But I know better. I've learned the hard way that sometimes the only way to deal with a betrayal this deep is to take control, expose the truth, and walk away. I hope she finally gets it. She lost someone who loved her, not because of her affair, but because she chose to lie and manipulate her way through everything. And as for me, I'm healing, rebuilding, and learning that even in betrayal, there's strength. I'll never forget what happened, but I'll also never let anyone do that to me again. I'll take my lessons and move forward, wiser, stronger, and finally free.